I took a break after posting my video because I wanted to spend time with my partner, and I came back to that video just like exploding. And I have a lot of things to say to the commenters, a lot of the commenters on that post, and just a lot of people in general. One thing I have to say is, of course, I know that every single person who lives in a society with beauty standards experiences body image issues, insecurities, hateful feelings towards their body. Everyone does, because that's the point of fat phobia. And the sooner we recognize that fat phobia impacts all of us negatively, the more we will fight together with fat folks who are pushing for fat liberation. But what happens is that thin people typically put up their defenses when a moment like this happens, and we call out that you can have body image issues, you can talk about having body dysmorphia without using fat as the butt of the joke, without being like, well, the reason why I feel bad about myself is because I feel fat. The reason why I feel bad about myself is because I think I'm fat. And it's like, okay, well, what are you trying to say to those of us who are fat? Hi, I'm fat. The world sees me as fat. My doctors treat me as fat and not as human. Society constantly is telling me that my body is the problem. So if you're thin and you feel all those ways, right? You feel like, oh, my body is horrible, it's disgusting, etc., etc., you still get to be benefited from fat phobia in other ways, like finding clothes in your size, like having your doctor take most, if not all, of your concerns seriously, of not having people to look at you and immediately comment on your weight in terms of a negative fatness. Of course, everyone suffers from negative body image because we have this horrible society that's created this. And also, we don't have to throw fat people under the bus when talking about it. And in addition to this, a lot of people were saying, well, I interpreted it to mean this, I interpreted it to mean that. Well, here's the thing about art. It's meant to be interpreted in lots of different ways. And a lot of people in the fat community were hurt, were upset, were triggered, were feeling senses of trauma responses. And that is an important interpretation, regardless of what Taylor Swift's intent was, or anyone's intent is when talking about their body dysmorphia or eating disorder. We have to think about what the impact is. And I'm not sitting here like, fuck Taylor Swift, fuck all thin people. Thin people can't talk about their body image issues. No, I want everyone to talk about their body image issues. The more we talk about it, maybe the more people will fight for fat liberation. And also, we can talk about it without making fat people feel like absolute garbage. Taylor Swift edited her video. See how that communicates the same thing she was trying to get across? Her struggle with body image and eating disorder and never feeling like she was right enough or worthy enough. See what I'm saying? For anybody and everybody who has been arguing with fat people, who have been telling you all, we are hurt, we were negatively impacted, we as fat people also have eating disorders, and eating disorders are largely created through fat phobia. If we had a society in which fatness wasn't demonized or hated, would we have the same rates of eating disorders? The studies suggest no, okay? So that's science, folks. It's not just me yelling in my living room. It's science. Anyways, just something to consider. Taylor Swift heard, she listened, she's making changes, and hopefully she's doing some internal work as well. And hopefully other folks are also taking some time to call themselves into this conversation and do just a little bit of critical thinking before immediately commenting with rhetoric that they don't really know what it means.
What is this? I'm not in the mood to wear Spanx. Like, I'm not, this isn't flattering.
Okay, I have a couple of things to say to my fat audience first and foremost. Number one, you do not ever have to wear Spanx or tummy control tights or anything. Your tummy can be uncontrolled. Two, your belly does not ruin an outfit. It does not. I want to say that again. Your belly does not ruin an outfit. Let it hang. Let it show. Let it glow. Number three, flattering. That's not real. That is what the fashion industry has convinced us is real, because it's like, only wear things that flatter your shape. I don't know what that means. Guess what? Clothes, they are supposed to be made for your body. So your body is already delicious, delightful, amazing, enticing, perfect the way that it is. So I don't understand the concept of flattering. That's what I just want to say to all my beautiful, amazing, fat human beings. And the other thing I want to say is, again, there is a responsibility that comes along with having a large amount of followers, especially a large amount of followers who look up to you as a plus size representative, which is a little hard for me because I feel like there's not enough bigger fat people who have large followings like that. I feel like it's really rare to be above a size 24 and have millions of followers on your social media. And there's a responsibility if you are a small fat. There's a responsibility to not perpetuate fat phobia. And this idea of flattering or like my tummy has to be controlled, look at it. Just allow your stomach to exist. Just allow it to exist. Apple-shaped bodies and big bellies, they're great. Let your belly exist.
Is being fat a choice?
I highly recommend that everybody goes to watch that video where this person does a really great job at kind of talking about what is choice and how do we define choice. And additionally, I just think that regardless if being fat is a choice or not, why does it matter? If I'm choosing to ditch diet culture because I know that it is not worth anything, if I'm choosing to say I accept my body in the way that it is, why does that make me any less worthy of care, of respect, of love, of just like human respect than if somebody is fat because of genetics and or a chronic illness and or whatever other reason? Regardless if being fat is a choice or not for someone, a fat person still deserves others to offer them care and respect as a human person first and foremost. I should not be given unsolicited diet comments. I should not have people talk to me about their concerns about my health out of nowhere just because they see my body as a problem. I think it's really important that we reframe this discussion of choice into a discussion of regardless if it is or not, I am still worthy to exist as a fat person without harm being done to me.
I don't know about you, but I lose so much trust in a fat creator when they're like, and I'm here for body positivity, and they don't mention anything about fat liberation. I'm like,
Y'all better come up here and get one of these.
What's that?
It's a chicken.
I really do want people to be getting checks from TikTok fame and whatnot. I just can't help but feel sad, and this might be controversial. I just can't help but feel sad that this amazing moment of enjoying food is now being taken over by Weight Watchers, which is a restrictive dieting app and weight loss program that has also been notoriously known to advertise to 7-year-olds. It's a little heartbreaking that a fat person can't enjoy a salad without it having to be attached to weight loss. And I have no context other than like, I know what it felt to be in a fat body and see this come up on my For You page.
Would you date someone that was overweight?
Absolutely not.
There, of course, is so much to say about this, and I would first suggest to not go watch that video and give it more views. My first question is, why do people keep asking others if they would date someone who is overweight? It's like perpetuating this thing, you know? In addition to that, the man who says no goes on, of course, to spew fat phobia, fat phobic rhetoric. And here's the thing. If you watch his partner, it seems like she's like, oh, this is not what I want to hear, right? Or she's just kind of like annoyed with the whole thing. And my question is, if your partner, right over here, who seems to be quite thin, gains weight in life, because most of the time as people age, They gain weight because bodies change. That's actually what they're supposed to do. Are you going to just be like, peace, bye, see you later? Is that what you're going to do? Because I don't actually understand when you are asked the question, would you date a fat person? And people say no. I'm just like, an entire category of human beings based on a physical characteristic. That is not a preference. That is hate to say that a physical characteristic is something that you will not tolerate, that you will not date. What? Now, if you wanted to talk about a personality trait or a character flaw, great. Those can be preferences. Like, I will not date a white supremacist. Okay? But to go off a physical trait, that is pushing hate. Okay? And to say that I won't date anybody who's fat, that is fat phobia. Shocker. In addition to that, there's another person down the line who's like, yeah, I would. And then I would bring them here to overcome. Overcome what? Like, overcome fatness? Like, it's this barrier that, like, all fat people are like, you know what I want? A partner who will help me overcome this. That's fat phobia again. There are fat people who work out every single day and are still fat. There are fat people who could maybe run faster than a thin person. There are fat people who do everything that thin people can do. I know it's a radical thought for some of your brains. But the idea here is, regardless of what a fat person can or cannot do, they don't have to prove anything to anybody. And in addition to that, saying that you won't date a fat person is fat phobia. Point blank, period. Thank you. I think it's important to lay two pieces of foundational groundwork. First, everybody needs to read this book. Fearing the Black Body, The Racial Origins of Fat Phobia by Sabrina Strings. Number one, fat phobia is a system of oppression that was basically built through white supremacy, colonization, and the enslavement of people from the continent of Africa. At one point in history, fat people were seen as having the highest of wealths and the most attractive. And then it switched quite quickly when we started to see that people of color were also fat, and whiteness had to separate themselves from people of color through what could be easily determined as changing their body size. And thus we have the birth of diet culture. Regardless of that historical perspective, it's also important to acknowledge that if your preference is being informed by white supremacy, racism, misogyny, homophobia, any system of oppression, that should call your attention out to say, I think I need to do some critical thinking here and investigating into why this is a preference of mine at all, and what is really feeding this belief. We should all be critical thinkers. So if you are someone who says, I just don't like or find fat people attractive, I have a big red question mark that comes. So you're saying, when you say, like, I don't find fat people attractive, you're telling me that regardless of personality, political beliefs, morals, values, characters, ethics, all the connections, the way they make you feel, etc., that if they were fat, it's a no-go. And to me, that is a huge red flag, because it's not actually that you care about the personality, etc. All you're seeing is a fat body, and you are just perpetuating the fat phobia that we've all learned in this culture. Listen, I am forgiving of that, because we all were indoctrinated into fat phobia as a culture, as a society. We all learned it. We all grew up in it. We are all consistently having to battle it. We would all be better if we were all working towards fat liberation, because it liberates all of us in all different bodies. But you have to do that critical thinking work and that investigating. And I mean you in the general sense, not directed entirely at this person, but to everybody who believes that not finding fat people attractive is just a preference, because it's not. It is very simply fat phobia. And we have a duty to be more empathetic and compassionate communicators and more critical thinkers, in the hopes that we can create a society that doesn't continue to spew hatred onto others based on their body size and shape. So is it actually a preference that you just don't find fat people attractive? Or is it fat phobia and white supremacy and misogyny that's underlying those feelings? I think this is like, it's just a moment where you kind of sit aside, and instead of putting the defenses up, right, instead of being like, it's a preference, I'm allowed to have personal preferences, it's like, okay, take a moment and think about, like, where are your personal preferences coming from? Where are they truly coming from? What is informing them? Don't be fat phobic.
This is absolutely incorrect, actually. Yeah. Again, critical thinking could be quite beneficial. Research. Ever heard of Google? I assume you have internet because you're on TikTok. Google could be beneficial too. It's just like, this is exactly how fake news spreads. This is absolutely incorrect. And I just think that's funny.
Here's the thing. SZA's song, Big Boy Season, it's catchy and I really like it. And also, it's fat phobic. Big boys are not seasonal, number one. Number two, all the different like portrayals of big boys like in the like SNL skit of it all perpetuates fat phobia. And I'm also wanting to know, will you all give the same love and attention and care and excitement to your big femmes and your big thems and your big women? Will you? Because I know you won't. Because I see it all the time. And I know that fat phobia affects feminine folks differently than it does masculine folks. We know that. But I just wonder, when will we be praised? When? When? When?
Mostly because I put so much work into myself, and if I don't see that being replicated in them.
I think this is like this guy's full-time job to like make a video where he goes into a gym, asks a bunch of people, you know, would you date an overweight person? Also, I'm just like, can you just say fat? Because over what weight? Over what weight? Anyways. So for context, before this dude's like, would you date someone who's overweight? And the guy's like, no. Well, like how much overweight? And then he's like, no, I wouldn't. And then gives that reason that he wouldn't date a fat person because he puts a lot of care into himself and he wants to date someone who does the same. I'm so tired of that narrative that fat people don't put a lot of work into themselves. Excuse me, we have dealt with years and years of trauma from people just like you. Most of us are in fucking therapy if we can afford it. And we're also doing a lot of self-work. We also have put in time and effort to shop where there's no fashion trends for fat people. That's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. We also do a lot of work convincing other people around us to care. That's a lot of work. And if you want to go down the gym route, a lot of fat people get in a lot of movement. Actually, like that world's strongest man competition, a lot of those people would be considered fat, and they're the strongest people in the world. So I don't totally understand what's your logic. And also, here's the thing. There is no logic behind fat phobia. There is nothing. It's a bunch of fake arguments to make people who are losing pieces of control feel like they can control things that are not controllable. And it is built in racism and misogyny, and I've already done a video on that. Just scroll back, you'll find it. But overall, I again want to know, why do we keep giving platforms to these people? And I know I'm doing it here. I know I'm giving them a platform here, but it's to dispel this myth. Like, I just need someone who's gonna like put as much care and effort into themselves as I do. It's like, what does that mean? Are you going to therapy? Because that's a lot of work. I don't care about how much work you're putting in the gym. What about your emotional work? Do you have friends that you're talking to? Your sister later on in the video says you have a girlfriend. If she gets fat, you're just going to be like, sorry, peace out. I don't like care about people who have had enough work into themselves like I do.
Shut up, it is not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Obesity isn't real. It's a made-up thing. It is truly a made-up thing because really behind the word obesity is basically just a scientific way to dehumanize fat people and make the world, well really Western society, believe that fat people are a problem or a disease. Fatness is not a disease. Okay? So before you come spewing things, make sure you fact check yourself. Make sure you look into what you're saying. I just want you to know that obesity is not real. And if you come from me being like, everything science says is 100% fact driven and truthful, I will debunk your ass quick. Because while I believe in science, I'm not an anti-vaxxer or any of the things that make people who are like, science isn't real. I'm not one of those. But what I am is a person who says science is a human-based experiment, basically, right? Scientists are humans, and all humans are flawed, and all humans have biases. So if we've looked over the history of science, there have been many times where science has been wrong. Like when science was super racist and said that white people had bigger brains than people of color, okay? Or like when science said that homosexuality was a disease and a mental illness. Okay, so when science can get multiple things in history wrong and then come back and be like, oops, my bad, science can also dehumanize an entire group of people to make others believe that they are a problem. And then later down the line, they rewrite what they're saying. Just like right now when science is actually talking about how diets and yo-yo dieting is one of the leading causes of heart disease and heart attacks. Even though for years, people have been like, you know what? Fat people are the reason why we are the leading cause of heart disease. It's like, ever heard of stress? Ever heard of the stress that it puts onto you when you're shamed constantly or not treated like a human being? Okay, so anyways, obesity isn't real. It's a very easy way to debunk this. And I'm just not going to play around with the idea that a lot of people are in the comments being like, it is a preference, it is a preference, it is a preference. No, it's not. You're going to look me in the eyes and you're going to tell me that no matter what a person has to offer you, their personality, their vibes, their things that they care about, their morals, their values, no matter any of that, if they're fat, you're like, it's a preference, okay? I don't date fat people. What? 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 It's really funny because a lot of cis dudes, or just like dudes in general, because I don't know if you're cis or not, continue to bring up this idea of force. They're like, you just want to force people into sleeping with you. You just want to force people into being attracted to you. What about consent? And I think that's hilarious for a multitude of reasons, some of which are so obvious I don't need to say them, but I'm probably going to say them. When are you all going to apply this argument to yourselves? When are you all going to apply the argument to yourself that you should stop forcing people to sleep with you? I have a lot to say about this. I'm just going to close this door. So it's just you and me talking privately. So, phobia, yes, a fear of something. Now, I do believe that people aren't running around like, oh my God, there's a fat person. Okay, but there are prejudice and discrimination and hate towards fat people that have no rational or logical underpinnings. In addition to that, people do fear getting fat. And one of the main reasons they fear getting fat is fat phobia, okay? Because basically they know how fat people are treated. So they fear being treated the way fat people are treated, which is like a big obsession with diet culture comes into this place of trying to control our bodies, which is something that we can't actually control. Our bodies are a being, right? Body autonomy, etc. You can try to control your body as much as you want. At the end of the day, your body, your genetics, etc. are going to do what they want to do. So this fear is very real because it builds the backbone of what fat phobia is trying to do. And people fear becoming fat because they fear facing the treatment that fat people face. Okay, so I'm going to try to explain a couple things in the most easy way possible while I do my skincare. So
Whenever I use the word fat phobia, there's, of course, a lot of people who are like, phobia? I'm not afraid of fat people. This is just something the leftists have made up. And the interesting thing is that there's homophobia, transphobia, all of these other phobias, right? Like, I could go on and on and on about systems of oppression. And one of the main reasons why it's labeled as such, or what I believe it's labeled as such, is because people then get to hide behind these prejudices and like discriminatory ideas and facts that they believe, through the idea that it's a fear. And so like it should be validated because it's a fear, right? So that's why I choose to use fat phobia, because it is a real term that applies to a system of oppression. In addition to that, I also know that a lot of people use the term anti-fat or anti-fat bias or anti-fat stigma because they're tired of people being like, oh, that's not actually a real fear. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. And so they're like, well, then I'm just going to call it what it actually is, which is just like anti-fatness, point, period, blank. And I agree with that because it is just like straight up anti-fat bias and anti-fat hate. So what I also wanted to just take a moment to talk about too is that this is not something new, okay? It's not made up. It is directly linked to evidence that can prove that we live in a westernized society that is based in fat phobia, that we see thinness as morally superior, and that we see fat people as a disease and inhuman and blah, 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 right? And that gives people reason to be fucked up to humans that are fat. And if you're like, fat people don't face discrimination, blah, blah, blah. If you just go to all of my videos and actually just look through the comment section, you'll see. It'll prove my point for me. I won't even have to do the work. And on the note of preferences, maybe a lot of preferences can be built from or informed by prejudice or discrimination or larger systems of oppression that we then push onto each other at the interpersonal level. So I don't want any fat person to be in a relationship or dating someone who is fat phobic or who doesn't believe that fat people deserve care or love or dignity, etc. So if you read my video and you take away that I'm forcing people to find fat people attractive, that's never said in any of the videos. What I'm trying to get us to do is critically investigate why we have these preferences when they're not actually preferences, they're just anti-fat bias, right? That's what it is. Just call it what it is.
I just want to say that if you're a fat person, you are not a failed thin person. You are not like, there's not a thin person inside of you that's dying to come out. Nobody owes anybody health. There are people in this world that will never be able to fit the westernized standards and values of health. Ever. No matter what they do, no matter how many vegetables they eat, no matter how many pounds they lose, no matter how many hot girl walks they take, they might never, ever be able to present you a clean bill of health. And those people still deserve to exist without harm. They still deserve care. They still deserve empathy. They still deserve respect. And they don't deserve anybody questioning their health or their ability to be alive. In addition to that, fat people don't owe you shit. They don't. And they will never owe you shit. Fat people don't even owe other members of their community shit. Okay, so let's just work on being critically conscious. And to every fat person out here who is being critically conscious, I love you. Take care.
A video I made where I said that fat phobia is not a preference, it's just fat phobia, continues to blow up with people who just flat out like hate fat people, right? And all I would like to urge you all to do is take a moment to critically think. Just like a moment to yourself, silently, thinking about what informs your preferences. Because our preferences are informed by the media, our friends, our peers, our family, our culture, beauty standards, etc. Your preferences are not a solo thing that only you experience.
And most beauty standards are Eurocentric beauty standards and focused on anti-fatness. And for anyone who is like, I just want my partner to be healthy, here's the interesting thing. One, you can't guarantee anyone's health will be the same from this point that you meet them till the end of their life, okay? In sickness and in health, right? Two, there are thin people who are unhealthy. There are thin people who will never be able to be healthy. So you're showing that you have no scientific research behind these assertions that you're saying that fat people are inherently unhealthy. And just like number three in general, why does that even come up into this conversation? Well, just something to contemplate. And I know that TikTok is not the place to encourage people to critically think and investigate, but as a professor in my day job, I have an obligation to ask you all to take a moment to just critically think and investigate where the ideas and beliefs that you have come from.
My favorite thing is when people suggest that fat phobia isn't a thing and I and other fat creators are just making it up. And usually, like, there's nothing to say that, ignorance, I guess, can be bliss for many people. But if anybody ever wants to argue with me, here's this. So I'm going to show you a screenshot from a video I did trying on clothes in Target. And I'm just reviewing them and letting people know that there are plus size options at Target. Here are some of the comments. Fat people cannot exist online without receiving hate. That is fat phobia working. That is fat phobia showcasing itself. When I made the video of a thin girl eating sprinkles with a spoon, and I said, if a fat person did this, the comment section would be ridiculous, and this is an exact example of how fat phobia operates, I had hundreds of thousands of comments telling me, just let the girl eat. Just let her be. You're making this about you. The truth is that everybody who participates in fat phobia will constantly say that it does not exist. And then they will prove that it does exist by their own comments and the things they say. And this is ignorance. This is also cognitive dissonance. And this is when I get really worried about our society and humanity. Are we not able to critically think? Are we not able to really acknowledge what we're saying and what we're doing? And I don't care if it's on TikTok and TikTok's not supposed to be taken seriously. Blah, blah, blah. People are making millions of dollars on this app by posting a try-on video or by doing a makeup tutorial, etc. So it is serious. It is serious. So I just, take a moment to think today. How is it so easy for you all to get things wrong? It's so easy for so many of you in these comments on this video to just absolutely miss the point. And it is so easy to clearly see that we really need to teach critical thinking in schools. Whales are massive and people pay tons of money to go watch them exist and swim. Most infrastructure is massive and people applaud the bigger the building is. People literally spend time and money getting massive booties. People would say that they go to the gym to get massive. So objectively, you're wrong. It is very devastating, confusing, and unsettling to see the amount of plus size influencers and just plus size and fat folks online taking Ozempic and Manjaro and Winobi. I don't even know. The names and the list go on these medicines that are used for diabetic folks or with folks who have diabetes. and they are pursuing intentional weight loss through weight loss drugs. And then in the same sentence, they'll be like, and I'm body positive. And it's like, well, this is why body positivity is not the same thing as fat liberation, but also just like, huh? And it is scary to think that this is like it's like a new wave. It's the wave of plus size influencers who built their entire platform on the backs of the plus size.
You know what is absolutely hilarious to me? Is that the fat phobic trolls think they're super original and they're like, you know what you could have been doing instead of making this video? You could have been going to the gym. It's like, who cares? You spend so much of your time thinking about me and policing me, and I spend no time thinking about you except for 19 seconds making this video. Like, get a life. I love this new wave of people just like straight up being honest that they are fat phobic, because then it's like, yeah, of course fat phobia does exist. And thank you for just being honest that you are fat phobic. And of course, the other thing of interest here is health. First of all, there are some people who will never be able to attain a clean bill of health. And are they not worthy of being loved and cared for? Also, like, you want your partner to be healthy. So no matter what, they have to be healthy. Whose definition of healthy? In addition to that, like, do you want to just say that you like eugenics? Because the idea here is that you really need a partner to be like capable and healthy and like the survivor of the fittest. But it's like, health comes and goes, and health is not forever. Same thing with beauty, right? Beauty is not forever. We age, we change, we look differently, etc. So I just don't understand the mindset of being like, I need my partner to be healthy. What happens if something happens? You're just gonna be like, you know what? Bye. I have had the wonderful honor of being featured on Blair White's YouTube with an incredible rendition of Hypocrisy. Check it out.
Biological hardwiring in people be less attracted to fat people, especially fat women, because of the lack of fertility that goes with that.
Now, the interesting thing here is if you're Blair White, you're talking about fertility and you're a trans woman, and you're talking about how men have a biological hardwiring to only be attracted to women that they can be fertile with, which is such an interesting thing coming from you. And in addition to that, let me show you this real quick. Maybe you know, maybe you don't, but this is the Venus of Willendorf, which is the goddess of fertility. And this statue's fat. I'm getting ready for this workshop right now, so let me try to answer it quickly. There are 3 different tiers. Yes, thin people pay the most. Why? Because thin people benefit the most from fat phobia. All of us are, of course, impacted by fat phobia and anti-fatness, and all of us should be fat liberationists, which is why I am doing this fat liberation workshop. And also, there is such thing as a wage gap, and actually there is a fat wage gap where fat people oftentimes have a 9% decrease in wages than their thin counterparts, which would mean that there are cases in which thin people make more than fat people in the same work just based on their body. BIPOC folks get charged the least amount of money, $10, because they also are continuously oppressed through wages. And also, I want anybody to be able to afford this workshop. So if a thin person was like, I really want to come to this, I can't afford $30, they could DM me and let me know, and I would have helped them come to the workshop. So I feel like there's a lot of assumptions here when, if you clearly read through the description, it did say that anybody who had financial constraints could come chat with me, and I put that also on my Instagram as well. I think it's obvious in some senses as to why there are 3 different tiers and why fat people are specifically in the middle, only paying $20. And ultimately, like, I have a hard time charging for anything because I feel bad about putting a paywall up about things. And also, I live in a capitalistic society, and so I still have to make money off of the labor and my education that I put into this and the work that I put into this. So it's not hypocrisy to charge people who earn more money or who are benefiting from systemic oppression. That's not hypocrisy. And it's not hypocrisy to charge people less who are marginalized and who are often kicked out of things or cannot afford access to things. I think actually you might need to like double check what you're trying to say here. It's not hypocritical at all. When fat people call out fat phobia and anti-fatness that happens to them, people love to denounce it and say that it doesn't exist. But when there are other videos with fat people just doing normal things, then people say like all these fat phobic comics about like watching their weight, go to the gym, super original stuff, you know? And then those same people will be like, fat people make fatness their entire personality. And it's like, y'all comment it all the time on our videos. So then when we flip the script and we're like, wow, here's what anti-fatness would look like, here's what fat phobia looks like, y'all get pissed off, but you're just proving our points over and over again. So I will not stop talking about fatness. It is a personality trait for me because y'all have made it so that fat people cannot just exist without harm. And we always have to talk about fat phobia because it is consistently pushed upon us. So many body positive advocates are now posting about intentional weight loss. And honestly, this should be a huge red flag to us. This is why the difference between body positivity and fat liberation is so incredibly important. And in addition, when you build an entire platform off of being body positive and it's like, your body's perfect the way it is, it doesn't need to change, yada, yada, yada. And then now you're posting videos like, why I'm on Wegovy, why I'm on Ozempic. That goes against everything you built your platform on, shockingly. And also, can't you do those things but silently, like to yourself and not super out loud online? Just a question. Just thinking here. Everyone should be a fat liberationist. It's really quite simple. Everyone in a society that has the system of fat phobia within it, which is most westernized or colonized areas, is going to be negatively impacted by fat phobia and anti-fat bias. Depending on how small or large you are, the fat phobia and anti-fatness will affect you in different ways and will have different material realities. But no matter your size, fat liberation benefits you. Imagine what it would be like if we were all liberated from the idea that our bodies have to be smaller or look a certain way in order for us to live our best lives. Imagine if everybody could wear what they wanted to wear without having to worry whether or not they'll be able to find it in a store near them or not. Imagine spending your time worrying about anything other than your body.